Sean, can you just take us through the process of courting Patty Mills, because you obviously had competition for him. You had to use the exception. What was that like, and how big of an acquisition do you think he might be to this team, especially with the style you play?
Sure. Well, Patty and I obviously have a history together, so I was very comfortable, and honestly, several of our, whether it was players or staff members, have known Patty over the years. So very comfortable in, the acquisition of Patty or trying to get him on board with us. You're right, he had multiple suitors out there, and the fact that Patty wanted to come here, wanted to be part of this, and inevitably chose Brooklyn and chose the Nets, we're absolutely thrilled about. His style of play will fit seamlessly in with how Steve is running things and with the group, and honestly with what our needs are, both offensively and defensively. I don't think people realize how good a defender Patty can be. He's a knack, he's a pain out there. He's going to get up in people. When you've got a guy like that who's in elite shape at all times, he can impact the game at both ends of the court. So, we're certainly thrilled about adding him and his experience on the court. But then I think you look at Patty and what he brings off the court from a culture fit, from a background. He's obviously played on championship team before. He's been around high level players. He's coming into this, on an all-time high. We talked back when I was in San Antonio about these were his goals, was to get on the podium for Australia. And I spent a few hours with him yesterday, and just to see him beaming and on this bronze medal high was like nothing else. So we're absolutely thrilled for him that he's able to achieve that goal, and that'll carry forward into this season. And he's already had an opportunity to sit up close and personal with Kevin as well, and start forming those bonds.
Ryan Lewis, New York Post.
Hey, Sean. You mentioned Kevin. I'm curious whether getting that deal done, that extension done as early as you did, does that help in any efforts to get James and Kyrie? And if you can give us at least any kind of idea, your confidence level in getting those done in a reasonable time.
Yeah, I think that they're all individuals in regards to what they're looking for in the future and their timing for this. I think we have definitely had conversations with all three of them. Kevin was honestly extremely straightforward and very upfront about, I want to be here. This is it. Get it done, and I want to get it done immediately. And I don't blame him. He's coming off a gold medal and wanting to really focus on, first and foremost, probably recovery and getting himself ready for the season, which will take a little bit. So I think from him, from a peace of mind standpoint, just putting that aside. And it was obviously very important for us. I can't tell you how important it was. I mean, this is, franchise changing when you can lock a person like Kevin up and he wants to commit to being here for the foreseeable future. And as it pertains to Kai and James, we're having those conversations with them now. I think there's no immediate hurry to get any of these guys done in terms of the first day of free agency. These are opportunities for us to sit down, break bread together, meet with Joe Tsai, and really all get on the same page. But I feel very confident that first day of training camp, we'll be looking at those three in particular being signed, sealed, delivered, and being a part of the Brooklyn Nets for a long time to come.
Alex Schiffer, The Athletic.
Hey, Sean, you said when we met with you a couple weeks ago how you're trying to add some front court depth during free agency. And you guys are about at 20 right now, I want to say, going in training camp. Do you feel confident with what the guys you have right now, or are you still looking to maybe add some last-minute additions before training camp starts?
I think we'll always keep that door open. It's obviously not wide open anymore because we've signed a lot of these guys, but I think it's cracked, and we've got to continue to tinker with the roster and just see what happens with the remaining free agents that are out there, and also what happens even into training camp. I think we've seen in the past where other teams make cuts and so forth, and we're able to adjust because of that. So I don't want to say that the roster is complete. Maybe it's 90% complete, 99% complete, but we'll definitely reserve the right to continue to tinker with this roster and see how, first and foremost, how Summer League goes. You know, it's exciting for us to see some of these young guys in Summer League and see how they perform, and we'll evaluate them as we get through the next week.
Christian Winfield, New York Daily News.
Hey, Sean, kind of piggybacking on Alex's questions, you could probably plug in me and Greg next to Kevin, Kyrie, and James, and they still have an opportunity to win every game, right? So how does having that level of talent kind of dictate how you examine team needs? And do you feel like you addressed all the needs this offseason as well?
Well, Christian, I've never seen you play hoops. I'll take your word for that. So, but those three are incredibly talented, without a doubt. You know, and we're very fortunate to have those guys on the roster, and also participating in. You know, we talk about this a lot, in participating in the roster build. You know, there's no surprises for them. They knew what we were doing. You know, as we go through the first 3, 4, 5 days of free agency, and it's not just those guys. We involve a lot of the players in these decisions because, you know, they're up close and personal with playing against these guys. So, you know, who am I to tell them who can't play and who's, you know, who would fit better? You know, I've got to take their opinions in this. I enjoy those conversations, honest conversations, and, you know, we don't always agree, but at the same time, I think it's great to have those conversations. So, did we address all our needs? You know, I think time will tell on that. I'm very excited about the additions that we made to this roster. I think we can all look at it and say, look, they were certainly focused in one area, and that was on a defensive-minded standpoint. So, you know, by adding, you know, Javon through a trade, by adding James and so forth. So, you know, those guys will definitely plug in some holes without a doubt. And, you know, at the same time, we'll certainly miss the guys that are no longer here, and wish those guys extremely well as they move on to their other teams. But, you know, I think we addressed a lot of the needs. You know, we won't have addressed all the needs until, you know, probably, you know, post-trade deadline. And that's when we'll really know what we're dealing with. But we wanted to make sure we were deep as we head into the season. We want to make sure we're healthy, and certainly address some of those needs from a defensive standpoint.
Tom Dowd, BrooklynNets.com.
And Sean, with Cameron and Aaron, obviously they've just played the one game the other day, but also had some practice sessions that I'm sure you saw. Just first reactions on how they've started to fit in the first couple practices.
Yeah, very, very positive with both our young guys who got to play in the first game, and excited to see, you know, the rest of the young guys play, you know, in the upcoming week here. You know, there's always an adjustment, right? When a guy hasn't played basketball really in probably 5 or 6 months, you know, since the end of their college season, and this season was quite unlike anything else, where, you know, in some cases ended early, in other cases they didn't have full seasons, and, you know, the draft process and the workouts were spread out, and, you know, we're dealing with, you know, free agency and summer league, you know, a month on down the road here. So it's certainly been a while since those guys have played organized basketball and not just had draft workouts. But we're very positive in what we saw specifically from Cam and Dayron on day one, and as they continue to get in shape and get acclimatized to the system that we're running and their teammates and so forth, we're very positive and bullish on this next week for those guys.
Back to Greg Logan.
Sean, how do you view DeAndre Jordan's role moving forward? There were some reports that you did try to shop him and move his contract.
Yeah, I think with all of our guys, you know, there's always discussions, right? And whether it's reported or whether it's not reported, you know, I don't want to use the old cliche, but it's a credit to our players that their names have come up in conversations and talks. But, you know, when you have a good team, a good roster, people are obviously going to make calls. And I think from a GM standpoint, if we weren't having calls around the league, you know, none of us would be doing our jobs. So that's what we do. You know, whether the roster looks the same, you know, in a month or two, you know, I really don't know. But as it stands now, you know, DeAndre is certainly part of this roster, part of this team moving forward.
Alex Schiffer, The Athletic.
John, we mentioned the possibility of extending Kyrie and James. Obviously, both those guys were injured at the end of the season. Just do you have an update on James's hamstring and Kyrie's ankle?
Yeah, so I've seen both of the guys over the last week. I've seen James working out. I've seen some videos of him, and he's really trending in the right direction. It looks great. Has really devoted himself this summer to rehabbing the hamstring and just getting himself in tip-top basketball shape. So that's really exciting for us to see James. And I was with Kyrie yesterday, and Kyrie is very positive spirits. It was a bad ankle sprain. There's no question there. So that's set him back, and he's recovering, but he's progressing well, and he's back in the gym. And I have no doubt by the time training camp rolls around, and even prior to that, the guys will have been together and being live on the court together and playing and working out. But from a health standpoint, no reason to be concerned about either one.
Brian Lewis.
Hey, Sean, this is a twofold. With Bruce Brown, I'm curious, a lot of people around the league thought that he had played his way into a much better contract, let's say, than what he was on before. I'm curious, was there a significant level of concern that you might be priced out, that he might get an offer that you guys just wouldn't be able to match?
Absolutely, without a doubt. Bruce, I give him a ton of credit because he found a niche for himself within this group. And we all know how, James and Kevin and Kai, have made players better around them. And it's just a matter of fact, when you play with the likes of that talent, they make everybody better. But, we certainly thought Bruce would be getting, whether it was an offer sheet or whatnot. But at the same time, Bruce made it very clear that, the job wasn't done here. And I respect the heck out of him for, wanting to come back, wanting to be part of this, and acknowledging the fact that, there's unfinished business here in Brooklyn. So I wanted to be part of that for us. And we need him without a doubt. We're very excited to continue the next year with him.
Christian Winfield.
Hey, Sean, given the state of the franchise when you took over a few years ago, what does it mean to you? Oh, wait, no, you can hear me. What does it mean to you to be able to potentially be able to have three of the best scorers and players in NBA history on the team for the next half decade?
It's not like I wake up and pinch myself and say, wow, look how far we've come, because, I think we realize, look, it looks a certain way on paper, but we really haven't done anything yet. So we have to remind ourselves, like, look, there's a long, long road ahead, and there's a lot of great teams that we need to try and get by. It doesn't mean our aspirations aren't, ones of championships. That's the plan here, without a doubt. We wouldn't be signing the players we are, and Joe Tsai wouldn't have given us the support to go out and spend financially, not only on the roster, but just in terms of whether it's arenas and practice facilities and everything else. If we didn't have these aspirations to win a championship. We have to be realistic about this. There's a certain amount of luck that's involved, without a doubt, but I think you prepare for as much of that as you possibly can. And our job right now is preparing, whether that's tweaking the roster or whether it's the guys individually making sure they're in the best possible shape they can be, and doing everything they can in this off season, because they know what's at stake here. And, it doesn't take away from our goals, but at the same time, I don't look back and say, well, look how far we've come, because I realize we have a long road to go yet.
Adam Zagoria, Forbes.
Hey, Sean, hope you're doing well.
Thanks, Adam. You too.
I know you have a lot on your plate in your mind, in terms of the odds, like the Vegas odds, the Nets and the Lakers are kind of co-favorites to win it next year, followed, I think, by like the Bucks and the Suns. How much attention do you pay to what the Lakers did, adding Russ, and, they kind of have a big three, you have a big three. Do you see any sort of rivalry there? Do you think you're the two favorites? How do you see all that?
Yeah, well, I don't spend much time in the sports book, let alone on the tables. So, I don't read a whole lot into the odds. At the same time, I think we have to give credit to Milwaukee, right? They're the NBA champions. And for us, to eventually hopefully get to where we want to get to, we have to go through those guys. And, they've done a heck of a job in assembling the team that they, had to take them to the finals and win it. And also the tweaks that they've made over the course of the last year. So, the parity in the league not only last year, this year, and probably for the next few years, for me is really exciting, because I don't think there's this one or two teams that are far superior to everybody else. And I think from a fan's perspective, it's certainly exciting. And I think whether you're dealing with a team that's potentially trying to get to that play-in tournament, or whether you're a team are we trying to fight for the 5-4 seed or the 1-2 seed, home court advantage, this is an incredible time to be, a basketball fan, and what not only our commission has done in terms of, setting the stage for this, and the teams around the league. It's just an exciting time, to be honest.
Malika Andrews, ESPN.
Hey, Sean, you mentioned Bruce Brown felt like he had unfinished business, and he certainly shared that sentiment with us. And it seems like several free agents that we've had the opportunity to talk to, that's been their sentiment. They know the Nets have more to prove. They know the Nets have other things that they want to do and achieve. Do you feel like you said you spent time with Kyrie and James, is that a predominant feeling around the organization with players of, we have unfinished business here?
Without a doubt, yeah. 100%. We talk about it a lot. We acknowledge it. We have honest conversations about it. I think it's really important not to shy away from that. Let's call it what it is. We all know what our aspirations here are, what we're gunning for, what the goal here at the end of it is. And to have a group of 15 guys that are in alignment, and there's really hopefully nothing going to stand in our way. There's no individual pressures and so forth. This is about a team of not only the players, but the staff that are all pushing in the same direction for that ultimate goal. But we know there's unfinished business here, and we hope that we can get there. That's certainly the plan.
Alex Schiffer.
Similar to Brian's question a little bit, but obviously Blake Griffin was a guy you made no question about that you wanted back, and he could have potentially maybe gotten a raise elsewhere if he looked around. His situation being a little different with Detroit, obviously, but just if you could speak to retaining him and what that means, given that you really want to shore up the depth down low.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd want to touch on here with Blake is behind the scenes. I think you guys all saw what he did on the court, the intangibles that he brought in terms of just the physical presence that he is. And, the media talked about sort of the rejuvenation and how he played. So it's a credit to Blake, credit to our performance team, and how, everybody bought in on that. But it's really the things in the locker room with Blake, to be honest. A lot of the things that go on behind the scenes with just who he is. And, it speaks volumes when a player like that could easily have gone to a multitude of other places. And, to Malika's point, decided, no, like, there's unfinished business here. I want to do something special in Brooklyn. And to have a guy like that buy in certainly sends the right message to the younger guys and the whole team in general.
Matt Brooks, Nets Daily.
Hey, Sean, hope you're doing well.
Thanks, man.
That's a question. You said that the roster is like 90% there. Do you have an idea for what that extra 10% is that you'd want to add, or is that kind of just fluctuating day by day and you kind of need to see what this team looks like together?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both, Matt. I'd hate to go in with preconceived notions as to like, we have to have this particular player or that attribute on the roster. This group really, even if you take the returning guys from last year, they've only played, a dozen or so games together. So they really haven't had a whole lot of time together. So this, the next 6 weeks training camp will be important. The amount of touch points that these guys have with one another, not only on their own, breaking bread and so forth, but as we get into training camp and we can get a much better feel for maybe some of the needs on the roster and so forth, so I think we'll be fluid. I think we'll, could potentially keep a roster spot open. We'll see where it all goes with this. We still have to, agree on a two-way position as well. So, I don't think we'll necessarily make our mind up, in the next 24, 48 hours or so.
Christian Winfield.
Hey, Sean, feels like it's been a while since we've heard anything about Nick and what he's been able to do this offseason. Can you kind of give us an update on what he's been up to and whether you see maybe his role expanding next season?
Yeah, Nick has been in the gym very consistently this offseason, working with our coaches. He's obviously not on the summer league roster. We felt as not only from Nick's side, but from his organizational standpoint, there were the things that maybe he needed to focus on, and he could do those better on an individual basis, working out with coaches and so forth. So He's doing that in Brooklyn. We've been very pleasantly surprised with, where he's coming. He knows he's got a long way to go. I think for him to get consistent minutes and to play at the level where not only he's expecting him to play, but the organization is, he's got to put the time in and got to put a lot of work in. And so far we've seen that. There's another 6 weeks to go for training camp, so plenty of time. But he has all the intangibles. You guys have talked about the athleticism and his sort of tenacity to attack the rim and his ability to put the ball on the floor and so forth. Whereas, can he do those things at a high level? Can he expand his game? Is he working on his shooting ability? Can he stretch the floor? Can he hit corner threes? And ultimately, he's going to have to stay healthy. So, in order for him to really take advantage of all those things, he's got to be out on the court and got to be able to, help us predominantly on the defensive end.
Last question, Greg Logan.
Sean, we've seen that you've added a bunch of guys with a defensive mentality on the second unit, but I think if there's one question about the Nets, it's their rebounding ability, and that they're especially going to be tested by a team like the 76ers this year. Do you have to do anything more to improve the rebounding this season?
I think it's a great question, Greg, and I think yes. In short, yeah, we do have to address that. I don't know that needs to be addressed necessarily with an acquisition. I mean, it could come from within. It comes with a mindset too. I mean, we need to get better on the defensive end. We need to get better rebounding, and we have a lot of players that have that skill set. It's going to come with a mindset. So. There's, Daron Sharp, for instance, does he get an opportunity to play and push our group in that regard? Potentially. Nick Claxton knows what's at stake for him. DeAndre Jordan knows what's at stake for him. And adding James Johnson into the fold here, a guy like that who has a toughness about him, defensive-minded presence, we're going to be expecting him to crash those boards and hit the rebound. But it's going to come as a team effort without a doubt.